welcome to another episode of the Tapestry Podcast. I am Dr. Francois Booker Drew, and I stay excited because I get to interview some of the most incredible human beings that I am just blessed to know. And so I want to share all of these great people with you. And today we have somebody who is going to blow you away. Alicia Morgan is a rock star, and I want to tell you a little bit about her, and then we're going to get into the conversation so you can see what I'm talking about, because we really have been vibing over this idea of social capital. And so we're going to spend some time talking about that today. But Alicia is an award-winning executive and a TEDx speaker. She is a relationship builder who engages with communities in policy and advocacy-related issues. She is a graduate of Tuskegee University with a BS in Aerospace engineering and New Mexico State with an MS in industrial engineering. So right there, she's really smart. Her for-profit leadership experience includes working at 3 Fortune 500 companies, and she transitioned into the nonprofit sector through after-school program leadership and several college workforce readiness initiatives. She was the VP of Education and Programs at the Frontier Flight Museum, and she was responsible for all of their STEM education programs that reach almost 50,000 students. She is a co-lead of the Policy and Advocacy Committee of Power and Action Dallas, and it is a group that I am honored to be a part of. She works with me and works with some amazing community leaders to really look at how do we create change in the Black community to help remove systemic disparities. So welcome to the show, my friend. I am so glad you said yes.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be here speaking with you. Like, your book on the rules of engagement changed my life, and it's just such an honor to be in the presence of someone like you. So I am excited about this conversation.
And so I want to start with that, because you have been like the poster child for my first book. And I'm like, I need to figure out how to put her on payroll, because you are constantly sharing content about how this book changed your life. So I'm going to let you tell the story about the book and then talk about what it's done for you.
Well, I came across the book. I was in transition, and I was having a difficult time. I am a person that focuses heavily on what I know is human capital, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing. I was ready to give up, and I'm not the person that randomly just talks to people and I don't have a relationship with. I was frustrated, and someone said, "You need to read this book." And I was like, why? What is the book going to do? I need an action plan. I'm an engineer. So I get to the book, and, you talk about, having transformational relationship, and you had actual action plans mapped out. And it just was an easier way to do something that I was already doing. And social capital was already working in my life, but it didn't register until I, read the book. And you broke it down to the human capital, financial capital, social capital, and just realizing that in every conversation and meeting, you have some form of capital to leverage, but you just don't know how to. So I just felt that it was relational, it was easy to do, and because I'm an engineer, it broke it down. I can just try these steps out. And then when I met you, and I was like, it makes sense. It just was a genuine way to start relationships, because people are like, do this. And I remember someone telling me that because I'm more of an introspective person, that I would never make it because I needed to be more extroverted and more, do it like this and charge at it. But I had to find my own way. And this book really helped me to do so. And I wouldn't endorse something that I hadn't done. And, as you know me over time. So I just really appreciate it. It was an honest, and it was something that I could do it. It just didn't seem disingenuous. So that's what I like about it.
And I love you not only for that, because it's like it affirms what, I really live and believe, which is relationships are the key to our success. And whether you're, an introvert or an extrovert, we all need relationships to help us both personally and professionally. And what I've loved is watching you flourish. To see you take these principles and how you've applied them to your work life and how you've applied them, outside of work and your extracurricular activities that you're doing. I love how you have been able to do that. So talk a little bit about how you've taken that material and really then implemented it. What have been some things that have come out of what you've learned and now you're putting into practice?
When you said hindsight is 2020 is clear. So as I was transitioning into the nonprofit sector and I was trying to, force things in a different way, as I look at my journey, social capital was working all along, but I just didn't realize it. So to give you some background, before I transitioned full force into the nonprofit sector, I was on a nonprofit board. And it was a team leadership development program. But how I got to that board was a friend of mine that I was working with, this is a cross generation, who was younger than me, was approached to join the board. Instead, she recommended me to join the board, and it turned out to be a worthwhile experience. So here we are. That's social capital working, and it's a relationship. I had done lots of programming and outreach work in the community. We were doing corporate responsibility, and here's somebody who endorsed me, and that's how that started. So then I was laid off in engineering, and I had been doing a lot of outreach, and I decided, this is my prime time to jump into the nonprofit sector. So I go to get the nonprofit management certification, and I meet someone at the organization who later would be the person who would give me my first opportunity to work at a nonprofit. Was Hard House, was Lenita. You and I both know Lenita.
Yes.
And then to further get segue into education, because I didn't have the traditional pathway in education, and my pathway is not traditional by any means. So I didn't get a master's in education or a PhD in education. So I needed a segue into education to work with administrators and teachers. So a former coworker from the for-profit job said, hey, let's go to Bryan Adams High School. It's in Mesquite, and I live in North Dallas, so you can imagine that drive.
Yeah, that's a drive.
But you do what you have to do. Instead, I was asked to join his board. I knew nothing about it. So I go to Bryan Adams High School, and it's a NAF academy. So NAF has, Be Future Ready, has academies all across the world, 50 states in different areas. So this particular area was going to be an academy of engineering and health sciences. So perfect. So I walk in, and they're doing the pathway to become NAF track certified. So students will go through this curriculum, get internships, and then they build their own social capital. I didn't know what all that meant back then. And I walk in, and something tells me, they said they were looking for a chair. Now, I had been on a nonprofit board, but I'd never been a chair. So something inside of me, my inner knowing, says volunteer. It's like, oh, I volunteered to become the chair. And it's like, okay, what do I do now? And I was like, I need to find an executive level mentor. Didn't know how that was going to happen. Again, I'm not a cold call random person. So a professional organization I was a part of, National Society of Black Engineers, started a mentor program and said you could look for mentors. So I go and look, and the executive director is listed, and I said, okay, I'm going to take my shot. My friend always says to me, you feel like you're out of your mind, but you might feel like you're out of your league, but you're out of your mind if you don't try. So okay, it's like, what do I have to lose at this point? So I reach out, and he becomes my mentor. And again, all these things that are happening are social capital in action. But the disconnect, I didn't realize what that was. I heard networking, but social capital is a little bit deeper. And so how the social capital is working, I just keep meeting people and working with different people. And I don't have an agenda at all times. Everybody's like have an agenda or plan, but I naturally, genuinely meet people. And as a result of being on that board and working at Hard House is how the first time I was recognized by the Women of Color in STEM conference for what I was doing. Again, that was not my goal in the beginning, but it's something about being in action intentionally that things start to flow more naturally. And I will say that is something that I've had to realize. I was giving back and all these things were happening. And I know we had a conversation about a leadership journey, like all of it wasn't mapped out. I just knew that I enjoyed giving back, and I enjoyed leadership, doing things to empower people, and things just started to happen more naturally, not by all of my design. Of course, you get more intentional about your goals, but the thing about social capital and building community is that you have to be in the game. I had a lot of sweat equity. It wasn't all design. So that's how that continues to happen. Even the opportunity at the Frontiers of Flight Museum, you actually posted the job, and I didn't find it. So I just noticed that, and even in opportunities to speak at my alma mater at Tuskegee University. I was connected to my professor. He recommended me. And all these things just start to just happen naturally, but as a result of over time, not just a transaction. Hey, do this for me. Just people in general over time seeing you and consistently doing work. Even the op-ed project, both of us were a part of it, was someone, I was at an event, someone saw me in an audience. I didn't know who they were. They emailed me and said, hey, I think you should do this. And it's like, what is this? Totally changed my life. I love writing. So it's just like being intentional and showing up, and you just never know what happens.
Well, and the thing that I love about it is you also trusted your inner knowing, and you made that comment that that's what you've allowed to guide you, but you've been open to the possibilities. And I think for a lot of us, we walk into relationships and meeting people and we're just, so agenda driven that we miss out on the real opportunity for connection that could result in what we want maybe later down the road, or they may know someone that can help us. But I think if we're so rigid in our expectations, we really miss out on having these amazing friendships and relationships that can change and transform our lives. You've done that.
Absolutely. And honestly, it's hard to do because
it is.
Anybody who's ambitious and driven, my TED Talk is about failure and starting over, and it's centered around my grandmother who loved Mahalia Jackson. I'm from New Orleans, loved Mahalia Jackson and loved Mahalia's version of How I Got Over. And in the song it says, soul looks back and wonder how I got over. How is this going to work? I want to give up. This doesn't make any sense. I must be crazy. Those things that you don't always say publicly, but to really walk by faith and not by sight is a hard thing to do.
It is. It is, because it's trusting in the unknown and the unexpected. And I know for you, faith has been very huge in your life. Talk about how you've had to rely on your faith, even in the midst of failure. What does that look like? How does that work?
It looks like having a tight inner circle of people that you can talk to. Because when you succeed, and especially at an accelerated rate, when you fail or something's not work out, you can't really talk to certain people that it's like, well, I told you I wouldn't have done that. That's what you get. Because even before I decided to go out into the nonprofit sector, I was talking about it when I was in corporate. And I remember a coworker saying, what are you going to do that for? You're going to be homeless. You're not going to be able to pay your mortgage. You're not going to be able to do anything. And in the face of you already having your own self-doubts, and even moments where it was a little thin, I was working part-time at Hard House before it all, looking back, it had to be all God, because there were some moments like, whoo, this is real thin. This is looking real scarce. And just to keep going and to have people, and then having people who've taken similar paths. You can have people play devil's advocate, but you have to have some representation of people who have done it before and say, you know what, that's a part of the process, Alicia. That's how it goes. But I guarantee you keep going, it'll work out in some way. And it always has worked out, but I can tell you, you still have your moments where you're kind of like, I don't really know. And if you would have told me that this is where I would be like 10 years ago, I was like, absolutely not. I was comfortable behind the scenes. I like to execute and do things, not my intention. Sometimes your comfort zone or the things that you think it should be gets pulled from under you. And once you have the